Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Noelcast. Bud recording live this morning on YouTube, February 23rd. Fun day for us over at the Battle's End as we have a website that we have launched that we'll talk about a little bit later in today's show. But as always, I want to thank our friends, Three Simple Ingredients, one fantastic product, Louisiana hot sauce, there with us on day one, or maybe it was year one, day one. Regardless, been with us for a long damn time. Perfect partnership for us and the great people at Tarpon Cellars, wonderful wine company, wildly successful last 12 months for them as well. TarponCellars.com, coupon code NOLCAST. Let's do it.
Man, yeah. So it's been, I don't know, about like a week since we potted. We try to average about, one a week in the off season, about 2 to 3 a week during the season. What you been up to?
Well, I try to actually talk into the microphone, so the first 60 seconds of this podcast may sound like absolute trash, and that's on me. It does, but I've had a couple things going on. I've been distracted, I guess.
A little busy day for you.
Little busy day, little busy past 2-3 weeks, but no. But I appreciate you carrying the, carrying the show. I was out of town. Was fortunate enough to get married a couple weeks ago. Went on a honeymoon and jumped right back into this Battle's End thing. Got the website launched today. Very excited about that. That's thebattlesend.com and public membership availability and public involvement is possible. We've been doing it for 80 days. This is day 80, and it's been a crazy ass run and a lot of fun. And look forward to whatever support the Noelcast listenership feels comfortable getting involved in.
No doubt, man. Definitely a great cause to support, and I think y'all's impact has been really quite obvious to everybody who is paying attention. And if you are watching this show at 7 a.m., you are probably distinctly paying attention. Shout out to Brad, his in the chat, his newborn's first Noelcast. So that is awesome. All right, let me see. So that you've been up to that. I got to brag a little bit. Group of Noles won the Florida Citrus Sports golf tournament at Lake Nona. Me and Danny Cannell, and also shout out Rick Campbell for the invite and get paired with a celebrity. I'm like, hey, Danny, we get to count this as a work day, right? Because I'm usually with Danny on Cover 3. Got to see Mr. Cannell sink about 250 feet of putts, including 3 eagles. So that was helpful on the way to 21 under, and we took it down. Got to see Mike Alford and Mike Ravel there at the tournament. Saw Kenny Shaw supporting a great cause. They are donating back quite a bit to the community around the Citrus Bowl. It is one of the more
that's great. Yeah,
exactly. What one of like the one of the poorer zip codes in all of Central Florida, and we also made a donation on behalf of Noelcast to that event. So really appreciate everybody who supports the Noelcast, and we do try to give back to charity when possible there. So that was a good time. And all right, the chat wants to talk about some Hambone updates. Look, man, I love Leonard Hamilton. I think the guy has done a tremendous job with the basketball program, and the landscape of college basketball has pretty quickly shifted.
It's also my dog's name, so they may be asking for both.
Your dog is named Hambone?
Yeah. But okay. We do get real comfortable with the references in chat, and that would be.
I was like,
"How about Hambone?" That's what we're calling Little Hamilton now, huh?
Okay. I was like, I did not know we're calling him Hambone, but like people, all
right. I was down in Tallahassee last weekend, I guess Thursday through Sunday. Had a chance to go to the Boston College game, and it was just.
I'm sorry.
What I thought it was from afar. Now they went down, I think at one point, 31-10 in that game, but fought back, made it close. But it's just, it's tough once it just kind of gets away from you. Once it spirals away, it can be tough to get back in, and just the landscape changes a lot. I think Leonard Hamilton is as really as transformational coach has existed at Florida State outside of probably Bowden, and what he did for that program is incredible. I know internally there's some people that are disappointed that when all the wind was in the sails, they didn't get the court named after him. That was something that a lot of people I think we're pushing for, and maybe still are. But it's just, it's you COVID got you. That was the team that had a legitimate chance to go to the Final Four, if not win the whole damn thing. And sometimes, particularly when you're an institution like this, and basketball is not a long suited traditional place of success that you have, that your window may only be open so long. But it will be very interesting to see how this is handled and what it looks like, just because it's a tough year filled with a lot of low points.
We don't talk a ton of basketball on this program unless the team is good, or unless it's really bad. It's because people typically, like, your diehards are going to care, but the people who are going to make up the 70 or 80% of your listening audience only are going to care, kind of like I care about FSU basketball. I'm going to front run it. I'm going to watch and cheer for them when they're good to very good, and if they're just average, I'm not going to spend my free time watching it. If they are on the way to setting the school record for the number of losses, then I will also tune in just to watch the train wreck. And, I don't have insider information here on if Leonard Hamilton is going to be back or not. If you had told me preseason that there was really any chance he wouldn't be back, I would have laughed. I mean, the guy's done a tremendous job. But if you have a disaster of this magnitude, they have 8 wins. In KenPom, they are 214th in the country. I mean, that is absurdly bad for an ACC team, right? Especially one that has routinely been top 30, top 20, top 40. Are they dead last in the ACC in KenPom? Let me look here. No, Louisville. Excuse me. Of course, Louisville has their own interesting thing. I think if you're going to bring Hamilton back, there has to be a pretty clear plan for how he gets this turned around. And I'm not necessarily convinced that it is doable, right? What does next year look like? What does 2 or 3 years down the road look like? Are you going to get a lot of guys from the transfer portal to come in and help you out here? Are they going to be convinced that Hamilton is going to be there for the long term? I don't know, man. This is going to be interesting because there's a decent chance they lose out, right? I mean, they have the North Carolina game left at home. We'll see. They have to go to Miami. They have to go play the Hokies. You shouldn't be making your decision based on those games. You should probably already know what you want to do, or at least know the questions that you need to ask if you're Mike Alford. And I'm sure he already has those questions in his mind and may have already asked them. His opinion of the answers, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or what those answers are.
Not a basketball podcast per se, and we certainly don't, have inside information or whatever else. Just something to watch, and it's a significant development, and it's unfortunate. Obviously, nobody at Florida State wants Leonard Hamilton to go anywhere. But if it, it's rare that something like this gets unwound as much as it does this year, and then kind of put back together. But we'll keep an eye out on it, and also kind of instructive as to what Florida State's doing as a whole as an athletic department. You've got an athletic director that I think only wants to make changes or make moves if they're of significance. So we'll just have to watch it and see what happens there.
All right, let's go now to this article that I pulled from ESPN. I'll just read this part, and then we can discuss. This is from Pete Thamel talking about the Big 12 and Pac-12's new media rights deals or potential media rights deals, and I read from it. I think Pete does good work over there, formerly of Yahoo. The Big 12's new deal and subsequent grant of rights has left it in a solid position through 2030-31. The fact that every major conference television deal expires and can be re-upped before the ACC comes back to the table illuminates the fears around the ACC. The ACC's deal with ESPN runs through 2036, and part of the reason it ran that long is because it allowed the league to form the ACC network. But there are increasing nerves about the more than $30 million annually its competitors will be earning above the ACC. Now, editor's note here, that is not like Big 12 and Pac-12. That's more like SEC Big 10 competitors. About half the league is fine with the financial status quo, and there's the other half. These schools most invested in football that continues to look for creative ways to find more money, whether within the league or by finding a way out. Unequal revenue sharing continues to be discussed, but that can't cover a $30 million delta. Quote, there's a disparate nature to the ACC, an ACC source said. You have publics and privates and big schools and small schools. It's a little bit of the ACC uniqueness. But times like now, it really, really shows itself. In the last year, it has become so apparent. Sources around the league stress that nothing is imminent in terms of a breakaway, but the search for new financial avenues continues. Quote, I don't expect anything in 6 months, an industry source said, but in 6 years, it'd be shocking if everything looked the same. The other leagues get an additional bump before the ACC comes up for a new deal. End quote. Just how binding are the grant of rights? School after school has gone after league headquarters to study them, so if there's an easy way out, some smart lawyer would have found it by now. The ACC, like most leagues, doesn't allow copies of television contracts and grant of rights out of the building, which protects the contracts from the FOIA requests. The essence of an ACC escape is that it would cost more than $100 million to leave, and the schools would still need legal wrangling to get the access to their own games, TV money for more than a decade. That's significant risk. But there's also plenty of risk for the high-profile schools of falling hundreds of million dollars behind national competitors. Quote, different lawyers have different opinions, the industry source said. Eventually, somebody will take the leap. You'd assume that others would would follow right behind. As usual in college athletics, the lawyers would be sure to cash in. The only certainty of any type of attempted billable hours, blah, blah, blah. If you're going to get out of the grant of rights, you better have a war chest, industry source. You're going to need it to pay legal fees. So, couple things here. A lot of that sounds familiar. Huh?
Yeah, it does.
We've been talking about that for a little while, how some of these football-focused schools, and I don't necessarily agree with the characterization that it is half the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's more 4 or 5 programs. It's interesting, man. I mean, that part about, well, there's a lot there that's really interesting to me, but I've always loved the idea that you can go look at a contract and not take notes or anything else of it. And there's been various stories of general counsels that have been able to do that and haven't been able to do that over the years.
As far as whether they could see the whole document or a summary of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And the grant of rights is, I was just on the phone with somebody yesterday about this. The grant of rights is, as one lawyer described, written by a lawyer that sleeps really well at night. It's clean. It's well written. As this article says, people would have challenged it and beat it if it wasn't. So don't think that there's some kind of magical single shot that can be fired that can get you out of this thing or something like that. I think, and call me a victim of my current landscape and seeing things through my own eyes. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I do think that NLI helps facilitate this and speed this up. NIL, excuse me, name, image, and likeness, not national letter of intent. Old guy from South Florida channeled me there for a second, got me. But yeah, no, I mean, name, image, and likeness, you can see it. You can see it very quickly as to there's a very quick realization by a lot of these schools as to, hey, we like this just is a landscape that we can't be competitive in right now. And now we'll go down and find some level of bottom feeder that we can exist on. But it's brings a stark reality of the situation, I think, all the more clear. And I've long thought that the best way out of the ACC is to maybe have enough schools in the ACC realize that this landscape isn't that they can do, and that you have maybe some kind of internal dissolve, and you've got to get to a pretty significant number there. It's no easy path, or it would have otherwise happened, but that's kind of what I've become more convinced of over the past 12 months or so when looking at this.
I agree with you on that point. I think that in the interim, you need to, if you are Florida State or Clemson, you need to be telling these other schools, hey, if you want any chance of keeping this thing together beyond the current deal, we're going to need to have unequal revenue sharing, because here's what you're going to get if the 4 or 5 important schools in this league break away, right? Your revenue is going to be slashed by like 80 or 90%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a league that is Boston College, Cuse, Wake, Virginia, you know, like those schools is not a good league for TV purposes. You know, you get a little college basketball there, you get no meaningful football on the national stage, and no real draws. So I think that has to be your carrot. Like, hey, we're not saying we're going to stay past this current deal, but if you don't help us out right now, we're definitely not going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like, we're going to need unequal revenue sharing. I know Clemson's AD actually brought this up in more tactful terms than that with his public statements, but I thought that was interesting after the recent ACC meetings. I also think that within Thamel's article here, it's not Thamel contradicting himself, but it is it's interesting because he says like a lot of lawyers have looked at it and it's well written and there's no way out, right? But also then he says, hey, like if you're going to challenge this, you better have a lot of money to pay legal fees, and different lawyers have different opinions. Eventually somebody will take the leap. It's not unbeatable. According to like this second opinion here, it's more the risk reward of challenging it is more palatable in a couple of years. Right now, the financial downside, if you lose this battle, would be untenable. In a half decade, less so. I think that's important to remember here, because if it's just simply unbeatable, then it doesn't necessarily matter how long you wait within reason. I mean, obviously, if you could do the Texas thing and just wait until 2 years before it's done. But I don't think it's necessarily unbeatable per these quotes. I think it's more finding the correct equilibrium risk reward wise with not getting left out in the cold. And you also need a dance partner. And I'm not entirely convinced that the Big Ten is as expansion hungry as they were. And I think we talked about this 4 shows ago, since Kevin Warren left for the NFL. A lot of those presidents up there, according to reporting, do not want to expand further at this point. So I don't know that you have a dance partner in the Big Ten right this minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you got to have two. You got to have two to even get, well, whatever. Yeah, you got to have somebody taking the Virginias of the world and stuff as well, and in the hypothetical that you just threw out. But nonetheless, if we continue to watch it, Clemson's a really interesting place, led by a super young athletic director, and they're doing some innovative stuff. They took their licensing in house, Bud, which is a very rare thing to see. Most universities pair with Learfield, or what was formerly Learfield IMG, and Clemson, interesting group up there, always trying things, and they've created success for themselves, and haven't been haven't necessarily just sat back and been complacent about it. So tip of the hat to the people up in the upstate.
No doubt, man. All right. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to our friends at Legendary Home Loans, legendary team, 844 FSU Loan, 844 FSU Loan. Tremendous job. I have got 2 mortgages through those guys, and I strongly recommend that you all do as well. Chad and Shannon have supported us for a long time. I think we have 400 Nolecast listeners who have gone through the Legendary experience. And I mean, it's just, look, customer service, best possible rates for you, knowledge of the market and the industry. They'll walk through the process, and they work fast and hard. I mean, you really can't ask for more than that, and you're supporting a really, seriously diehard Knowles business as well. I can't recommend it strongly enough. I think they do a tremendous job.
No, they're great dudes. Yes, 400, and that number I think is really in the 490s. Almost 500 people have used them after listening to the Nolecast, and that's awesome. And I think they'll have a official partnership with the Battles Inn that they will announce in the next week or so as well. So awesome
for you guys, man. That is
great,
tremendous.
Great to continue to work with those guys in as many ways possible. So yeah, man, good
right,
dude.
I wanted to ask you a question, but who do you think is not in a position battle entering spring?
Your linebackers.
Yeah, I think so. Jordan.
Yes, Jordan.
Johnny.
I was going to say there's aspects of the wide receiver position that are relatively well defined.
Pittman, I think, is probably unchallenged, right?
Pittman is. You're not going to say this, but you didn't go get Fintrell Cypress not to play him. You know, I mean, that's one of the top 2 or 3 players in the portal. So he's got to come in and work all the stuff, but at the same time, you've got that guy to get that guy.
I think Robert Scott.
Jared Verse.
Probably. Yeah. Byers is, I'm not sure where, but I would be shocked, somewhere between surprised and shocked if Byers is not a guaranteed starter at one of your spots. Lovett is a starter for you, I think, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he is.
I'd be pretty shocked if it was Fisk and Jackson over him. Dent.
Yeah, Dent.
And Benson.
And absent other portal activity, I mean, I think you can say Shaheem Brown's your starter right now, but we'll see if there's more movement at safety.
Yeah, I think so. I know Brennan Sonnone said that they're going to try out Duke Cooper as well at safety this spring. So, you know, that's interesting. I think they have to be smart there about like who they approach position changes with and when, right, to prevent transfers. You know, and we'll see like who, you know, who keeps the roster together the best and who doesn't upset the apple cart, right? Like there are certain guys I think could be the best option to move to that safety spot, but they may view themselves more as a corner, and we'll just watch how that progresses throughout the spring. And sometimes position changes work out, actually, like even if they're trying like the opposite effect where they're trying to essentially not break a guy, but just see how much they can test him. Yeah. And that has happened before. But I asked this question, dude, because I think it's notable who we didn't mention, right? I mean, Meach, Washington, Maurice Smith. I think the tight ends are in a position battle depending on what formations that you're in. Your X receiver position, right? Like that's going to be fascinating too. I think I like Darian Williamson quite a bit, but we'll see who else can emerge on the outside. McClendon was not mentioned, right? And you know, like I don't think there's any guarantee. Pat Payton not guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean he and Payton. That's going to be great. Going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And always the South Carolina kid.
Yeah,
right.
And Gilbert Edmonds going to be right behind him. It'll be a lot of depth there. A lot of
This is kind of fascinating, man.
It's great. I mean, it's when your point's exactly it. The names that you can have here and not have them be automatic starters is where this really starts to get fun. And it makes you realize the amount of progress that's been made over the last 18 months or so of turning this roster and then holding on to enough of it after this year to live the big dream of what 23 could look like.
So I wanted to bring up a baseball analogy for you. In baseball season kicking off, I got my Rays hat on, really excited to go. My son's talking about Wander Franco. He wants to watch Wander Franco highlights on YouTube. And yeah, I'm excited about some of the stuff coming up with the baseball season with the new pitch clock. And hopefully that'll keep stuff moving pretty well. There's a fascinating article, by the way, by Grant Brisby, who went and he watched exact games in terms of runs, hits, errors, walks, and same final score from 2020 compared to, or not, maybe 2019 because it was not a COVID year, compared to one in like 1989. So 20-year difference here, or 30-year difference, excuse me. And one was like an hour longer. And he was like, where is the major difference coming from? And he charted it. And actually, the vast majority of wasted time or expanded time was time between pitches. So it was not more commercial breaks. It was not more pitching changes because he also counted for that. Like same number of pitchers used, everything. Like, and it's you can kind of do that. It was really interesting. But I'm curious here, you know, what that would look like. But the reason I bring up baseball here, this is a long transition, and I apologize, is that I was reading an article, and I can't remember who wrote this, but it talked about, you know, you have your teams that have a lot of upside guys, and then you also the teams that had the fewest number of innings played by guys with negative WAR, so negative wins above replacement. And it turns out that some of the teams that rated really highly in the standings were teams not that had superstars, but that minimized their innings played by guys with negative WAR. And like the Brewers had very few superstars last year, but they also, I think, had the fewest number of innings played by guys who have negative WAR. And I look at this and I could, then you could analogize this roster a little bit to what the Brewers are doing, right? I don't see a lot a lot of top 100 picks, or certainly not a lot of first rounders on this roster right now. But I also don't see a lot of positions on this roster, especially not starters, that I feel like are going to be like the default starter and also not a good player, right? Every position battle that's unsettled, I think you have relatively high floor. And I think that's a credit to what Battles In has done, right? Of making Florida State a place that you can have some quality NIL opportunities to market yourself. And that makes, obviously attractive place to be. I mean, don't you feel really good about the floor of all these positions, if not the ceiling?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think you nailed it there. I mean, the guys that you're going to have playing next year, to use a soccer analogy, or guys that are going to give you a bunch of 7.5s, 8s, 8.5s. I don't know that you're going to have a whole lot of 10s. You certainly got guys who have that ability. The more you talk to people around the program, the more they'll tell you that, like, Trey Benson may just be like scratching the surface of what ultimately he can be. Like, so okay. So maybe you have the best running back in the country or something like that. Maybe Jordan continues on his path. So you've got a couple guys out there that can give you 9s, 9.5s, and 10s, but I think you're just going to get 7.5s and 8s from damn near everybody as to what it looks like. So the Battles In, we have public availability today. You can go to thebattlesin.com. Look at our website. We have 5 different membership levels there and all sorts of other opportunities. There aren't a whole lot of limitations in this space, man. You can do almost anything is possible, and we're real excited about what we've been able to accomplish in the first 80 days, and very proud of the role that we've been able to have in the retention of the roster that we're talking about here now. And again, if it's something that you, the Nolecast listener, want to be involved in, please feel free to do so in whatever way you may feel is appropriate, or to reach out to me if I can give you more information about the Battles In.
No doubt about it. Chad asks thoughts on potential college ball game clock changes. For example, the clock running after first down. The college ball game is already shorter with pure game time. I have a fairly in-depth breakdown that I'm going to do today on Cover 3 at 11 a.m. And I do have other stuff we want to get to in the rundown today that's more FSU related. Very quick synopsis. I think the first 3 things that they suggested will pass. So no more icing kickers in terms of like you can't call a timeout out of a timeout anymore.
Can't double ice. Yeah.
Right. I used to call that the Jeff Bowden when you use the TV timeout after, or you use a timeout after a TV timeout. That was not really great. No more untimed downs to end the first or third quarters. You just roll it into the next quarter. That is not a real important one. The clock running after a first down is one that I think they will probably get to pass, except within the last 2 minutes. And I think that they threw out the idea of the clock running after incomplete passes, most likely as sort of a threat to make sure they got the other 3 passed. Like, they want to throw something out there that can get the coaches pissed off, so they don't get pissed off about the first 3.
Got it.
That's my guess on this. I also have some really good comments that we pulled from about 16 months ago, where we had an expert on talking about how bad the concussion data was that the NCAA got back from the 80s and 90s, and how the main reason that they're trying to reduce the time in games is because they are basically scared shitless of the liability stuff that might be coming down the pipe. Okay. That's my 90-second preview for today's Cover 3, but we have a pretty in-depth discussion coming from it and the impacts it will have. I think there's a parlay effect too, to where, like, if you pass all 4 of these, you're going to cut games from like 70 plays to like 45, and that's probably not what you want.
Exactly. The old overcorrection.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, fascinating, man. I mean, I feel like something will be done, but you don't necessarily want to go totally blurring the lines of college and pro football either, with rule changes and everything else. So interesting to watch.
All right, so let's talk a little recruiting, dude. Couple notes I have here. You're going to be in some battles for offensive tackles and battles nationally, right? Because the offensive tackle crop this year I don't think is as good as it was last year. Last year at 24/7 Sports, we had multiple offensive tackles rated 5 stars. This year, it's not so, at least not yet. And some of these guys do emerge later on. Right now, we have no offensive tackles rated 5 stars. We have one rated 94 out there in California. He's our number 20 player overall in the country. The offensive tackle crop within the state of Florida is particularly poor this year, and that is unfortunate for FSU, right? Because you have Alex Atkins, you're coming off a 10-win season, you are projected to win 10 plus games this year. But if you look at the offers, Atkins has clearly identified the need to go and fight some big time battles nationally this year, and I think that's just really important for them to have to go and do. And that's not the case for other positions. There are other spots on the recruiting board where you are heavily Florida based or South Georgia based, which I'm happy to see. I do not think FSU needs to be recruiting Mississippi and Alabama as much because, and I know if you're at Memphis, you had to, but at Memphis, you didn't have to fight battles against this, like Auburn and Alabama for kids. You had to fight battles against the teams that like don't have to fight against them, right? I think can we go on a tangent about adverse selection? Right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay. Like if you land a kid that you really want out of Alabama or Mississippi, is it actually a bad sign? Because the vast majority of the time, if you get that kid, or if you have a kid that you really want and your evaluation is good, Auburn and Alabama are probably going to want that kid too. And they have ways of getting those kids to stay inside the state lines. Now, if you land them, it might mean that maybe they know something you didn't. Right? Now, look, this is not always the case. There are rare circumstances in which you land a stud from Alabama or Mississippi. So you did land Jameis. There's a lot that went into that, right? Auburn already had a big-time target that they were on. Alabama, I think Damian Craig had a unique way of recruiting against Alabama there that really helped you out, and I'm not really sure that's repeatable circumstantially. And also you had the baseball issue. Like, would Alabama allow Jameis to play baseball? Florida State clearly was going to allow Jameis to play baseball, right? It wasn't sure if like Nick Saban was going to let a quarterback play baseball at that time. And he really didn't see the need to, I guess. With Cam Akers, you had it's interesting stuff going on with Ole Miss at the time, some uncertainty. You had Alabama, who already had their priority target in Najee Harris out of Oakland, California. Auburn was a bit of a mess at the time, I think, right? Like they had lost some more games than normal. LSU was on the tail end of Les Miles, correct? And so they were kind of screwing around. It was just a unique circumstance. For the most part, I think that you have an adverse selection issue when you recruit Alabama, Mississippi. And I'm not saying you have to totally avoid it, but like I want to hear the justification for why you think this kid is actually as good as you think he is and why you think you're going to beat out Bama and Auburn for him. Personally. It's not the same case for Florida and South Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah, that's my TED Talk. You want to watch some film?
Let's do. Absolutely. What do you have?
So I got two kids here that I think are kind of interesting. And they are unrated kids at this point. Let me see. Let's go ahead and pull this up.
While you're pulling it up, I will thank our friends at Madison Social and Downchip, and of course Charlie Park. Went to a concert on Friday night, Bud, and look up who do I see? One Matt Thompson standing in the same suite, and great to connect with Matt, talk with him, catch up. Hadn't talked with him in too long, and just incredible the options that they continue to provide. Walked by Township later that night. There was like a 25-minute line out the door. Those guys are doing all right, and it's great to see a longtime partner that's continued to support the show continue to do big things in Tallahassee. So while this year's focus is on Charlie Park, we thank all of for the table properties. And as always, big thanks to Matt Thompson for support of the Nolecast.
No doubt about it. One thing I like about FSU staff is that they are not afraid to go out and offer kids who don't have big time offers yet, right? And I've expressed my my thoughts on some other schools that do this too. And this is a kid, and look, tight end position. We know that Florida State is recruiting Landon Thomas. He's committed to Georgia. Has visited multiple times. He's out of Colquitt. I don't really think he's going to decommit from Georgia, but if he does, I know the Noles would be extremely excited to have him. Obviously, the kid's an absolute stud of a tight end prospect. But this kid is also interesting to me, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll talk you through some of the highlights here. But pretty interesting guy. His name is Amir Jackson. He's out of Portal, Georgia. Where is Portal, Georgia?
Hands up, man. I'm not even going to fake it.
Whoa,
I have no idea.
All right, it is in like East Central Georgia. The town has, I believe, 638 people.
It makes me feel better. It's rare that I just get Bullitt County. Okay.
Yeah.
Still, yeah, no, I wasn't even going to fake that. I have never heard of Portal, Georgia. 638. Okay.
Yeah, 638 people is not a lot of people. So,
YouTube listed as a human settlement in Bullitt County, or Wikipedia rather, listed as a human settlement.
Human settlement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyways,
interesting term there.
Yes.
So this guy has an interesting athletic background, right? He plays multiple sports. Basketball guy, averaging a double-double for freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Tiny town. He's playing free safety at allegedly 6'5" and 214 pounds, which is a measurement.
Pat Watkins-esque.
Yeah. I'm kind of intrigued here. Like, let's watch some of this. So, on his huddle, he's circling himself quite a bit. So they're throwing a little screen pass. Okay, like this is a pretty big kid, and he takes it the distance. I have no idea what the competition level is actually like for Portal, Georgia. Both these kids we're going to watch this morning, by the way, are kids who are in very small divisions. So look, I mean, he's playing defense. He chases this kid down, hawks him down. They actually do a pretty good job of cutting these. Now here he is on offense. They run this like little wing T full house backfield thing. One of the things I'm kind of impressed with is that he only had, I think, 25 catches on the year, but a lot of these catches are literally 1-on-2 situations. Here's another screen, makes a guy miss at that size, is pretty impressive, and then takes it the distance. Cool. Here we go again. You can see him lined up at the top of the screen. Again, 1-on-2, comes down with it, right? So he's actually like skying over double teams pretty reliably here. I mean, I'm not sure this is a kid that like a lot of schools would take a commitment from, and I'd want to see some verified speeds and testing times from him. But I think the multi-sport aspect of his profile is intriguing, right? And like I want to see better change of direct, or not better, just I want to see more evidence of change of direction from him, because I think that's an important skill set for a tight end. Like straight line speed is nice, and he does show pretty damn good closing speed in the open field. Also, this is a kid, not gonna lie, I think Coastal does a tremendous job of offering guys and identifying them, and they were the first. So they really do look, if he just pancake blocks that kid in the open field, plays pretty hard. I don't know if he does track and field stuff. So again, no verified testing times. Here he is on defense. I think this is the one where he just crushes this kid. It's a 10-minute highlight. We're not going to spend all 10 minutes watching, but okay, that's a decent little cut down there. Again, out on the outside. They're playing some games at Georgia Southern's field, which is curious. I'm not sure who the opponent is here.
They're just outside of Statesboro. Portal's about 15 minutes outside of Statesboro.
So he pancakes that kid there too. That's a knockdown. Here they're handing it to him a little tight end around. This is pretty impressive, actually. So he makes multiple kids miss on a tight end around, and then goes 60 yards, outruns the angle for the score. I mean, it looks like it's kind of smaller competition ball, man, but he is dominating it in the way that you want to see smaller competition ball dominated. Here he makes a guy miss. This is pretty impressive too. Like he runs all the way around. I mean, he does look like the biggest, strongest, fastest player on the field, which, you know, it's hard. You can't play free safety at this size in a bigger classification. But I think the fact that they just have him playing center field and hawking down and all this stuff is pretty cool. So, yeah, Amir Jackson out of Portal, Georgia is, I think, a kid to watch and potentially an intriguing dude. Maybe somebody they'd want to get into camp over the summer. And we'll see. We'll see what else he has going on. I don't know if people are enjoying this segment or not. I like looking at some of these unrated kids that FSU offers.
It's cool. It's cool to get your opinion lifetime.
All right. Here's the other kid I wanted to show. This is Artavis Jones from Bluntstown. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Artavis Jones. All right. You can see that?
Yep.
All right. Really pretty intriguing kid. Now, Bluntstown, obviously, small classification, but I think he was a state finalist or state champion in the discus for 1A as a sophomore. He is what number is he? I think he's 42. So not here, but here on this. Yeah. Okay. So he gets a strip sack fumble there. 6'2", like 280. He does have some decent track and field stuff in addition to the discus thing. They use him both ways. He'll play some offense. He'll play, some defense. You see him pulling there as sort of like an H-back spot. This one is, pretty good explosion, getting to the quarterback, being a disruptor. You want that nice downfield blocking here in the open field, keeps moving the legs, drives this guy all the way to the sideline, and then they cut the tape off there. Here we go. They actually throw him a slip screen, which is fun, and he takes it. Does he score? Oh, he does score. Okay. Pretty nice. Now they're using him as more of that tight end position here. And they throw it to him and look, be an athlete, catch ball. That's nice. Again, back here at nose guard, half man, recognizes screen, takes a step back, picks it off. Pretty impressive there. Like that. On the film, he doesn't look 6'2" to me, but I do think he is, just from stuff we've heard, and I think this is another probably pretty good offer. He's been picking up a number of them recently, and a guy that you'd want to get into camp and have work more with Odell. But Bluntstown fairly loaded, and I mean it's smaller competition. Nice pancake block there on the pull. I don't know if the chat is enjoying this. Stance is okay here. Nice job to reset the line of scrimmage, redirect, keep the hand free, make the tackle. Actually, I was talking, so I didn't get to see what this one was. Yeah, this is the fumble 6 that he takes back to the house as well. I think this is a solid offer by the Noles. I'm impressed with the job that they're doing scouting wise. Mike Norvell is clearly invested in that, and I mean, not just Norvell, but the program. So we don't need to watch a 9-minute highlight tape. Most kids put their best stuff first. Balance, body control, some explosion. I think I like him just as much as the two current commitments the Noles have at defensive tackle, to be honest. So we'll see how this board continues to evolve. Ricardo Castro asks, Bud, do you believe Jeremiah Smith sticks with Ohio State if Hartline, that's Brian Hartline, Ohio State receivers coach, bolts? And if not, can FSU get in on that recruitment? Look, potentially, I don't know. It's not that we don't take hypotheticals. I just don't know if he would bolt or stay. I do think that kid is potentially the best receiver prospect I've ever seen. What he did to the Clemson corner commit, just back-to-back plays, 4 in a row in 7-on, was kind of disgusting. And it showed the full complement, stop-start ability, agility, downfield speed against a kid who's a legitimate track player, hands, very impressive, body control. It was like watching Julio Jones out there. So, and he told me he doesn't like being compared to Julio Jones because he wants to be his own man. But guess what? Comparisons to NFL Hall of Famers are not a bad thing. He's at Chaminade. FSU made some good inroads at Chaminade last year. Anything's possible, I guess. He's visiting. So that's encouraging, right? Yeah, I think it's certainly one that you have to. If Hartline stays at Ohio State, I would expect the kid probably goes to Ohio State. You can't stop recruiting the kid who's that damn good in your own state. Things happen in college football. Hartline was a candidate for some jobs this year. It's certainly possible that he gets a head coaching job somewhere. Got a question from here, not from the chat. This is from our Patreon, patreon.com/Nolecast. Why does Bill Connelly have FSU's defense rated higher than the offense? Good question. If you if you watched our Cover 3 show that we had with Bill Connelly recently, he explained that in terms of projections, defensive continuity has a higher correlation to continued success than offense does. FSU has more coming back on defense than it does on offense this year overall, because you do lose some guys in the offensive line. You lose Pokey Wilson. You lose Trayshawn Ward. And those things all show up in the returning production numbers. FSU returns almost everybody of consequence on defense. I mean, Jamie Robinson is basically the only serious impact guy that you are losing. So because coaching seems to matter somewhat more on offense at the college level than defense does, the returning production you have is weighted a little more heavily on defense. SP Plus also is not going to make individual player adjustments in terms of who played what in what game. So obviously you have that 5-game stretch where the offenses that FSU's defense kind of got fat on were just decimated in terms of like quarterbacks being out or in total disarray, and FSU snuffed them out like you would expect them to do. That's why it has FSU's defense rated higher than FSU's offense. I don't agree that FSU's defense is better than its offense, but we'll have to see. If that is the case, then FSU is going to be extremely good, because I think you can count on this offense to be really damn good.
I think so. I mean, yeah, the offense, no reason the offense is going to be just as good when you look at all the skill returning, and then with the confidence that you have in both what you brought in the transfer portal and who you have coaching them. So whatever it is the defense looks like, it will probably be as good of a thermometer as to what happens next year. Let's thank our friends at Congruity. We actually have a new partner to announce. Let's do that. Let's lead the next show with that, just so that they can not be buried on a 8:00 in the morning announcement 45 minutes into a pod. But yeah, always great with the work that Matt Lewis does, and for us to be able to continue to work with him and find new partners. If there's ever anybody in the space of payroll or HR or employee benefits, there's one person to talk to, at least in Bud and I's opinion. That is Matt Lewis. Feel free to reach out to me if you'd like a personal introduction to Matt, or to just go to congruityhr.com to find out more about what they offer.
Yes, sir. All right. Question for you. And this is one that we got DM'd us on Patreon. How high can Jordan Travis rise up the ranks of like FSU's quarterback pantheon hierarchy, I guess?
I thought you were asking draftability. Let's have that conversation as well, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
How high? Okay. Very high, in my opinion, because of the story attached to it, all that he went through, and he's an in-state kid. I think Jordan has a chance to be remembered. I mean, he's not going to be Jameis. He's not going to be Winky or Ward, but I think he has a chance to pass people like Casey Weldon. I mean, like I think he has a chance to be exceptionally popular and very, very well remembered because we're so fresh of the darkest times in this program's history, really, as far as modern day results and consistently over a course of years. So, yeah, I think Jordan has a unique chance to be remembered.
I mean, if you look at this, right? So obviously, it's going to depend on what he does. If he gets them to the playoff, something like that. If he, made it to New York, obviously they have the Heisman campaign for him going on right now. Jordan right now is 13th in career passing yards. He has 5,888. The all-time leader is Winky with 98.39, I think. So that's fairly impressive. Sorry, let me sort here. Yeah. And then Rick's, Winston's third, EJ's fourth, Drew Weatherford's fifth, Christian Ponder sixth, Gary Huff seventh, Danny Cannell eighth, Francois is actually ninth, Busby is 10th. Obviously, how many years you play impacts this quite a bit. We would not have, Rick's, EJ, and Weatherford among the top three quarterbacks in FSU history. Look, man, I do think that somewhere between fourth and sixth are open if things are happen that are reasonably in play, and if you want a national title or something crazy like that, then I think you're gonna put them there with some of the guys that won a title and won the Heisman, right? I guess. I mean, you're right with all the stuff the guy went through and how he stayed, and I think he'll be right there.
And he just happens. Winky's moments of brilliance is like standing in a pocket, flicking his wrist, and sending a ball 65 yards downfield, which I am not minimizing at all. That's awesome. Trust me, that ain't bad. But Jordan's moments of brilliance are like, well, he made 6 people miss and turned a 12-yard run into a 71-yard touchdown or something. It's just when it hit, God. the Florida game. When Jordan does something, it has a pattern of literally making you stop in your tracks and saying, "My Lord, I just saw a 3-second streak of brilliance." No, I mean Jordan can be a massive name in the history of Florida State football. Absolutely.
Draft stock wise is very interesting, right? Couple things here. Yeah, he did dribble a football and score a touchdown. That is correct, Kevin in the chat. Couple things. So I was listening to the Move the Sticks podcast with Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah, two guys who have been NFL scouts and now work for NFL Network. And they were talking about the quality of quarterback class for 24 and saying look, man, you got two dudes who, it's kind of they didn't say worth tanking for, but they talked about the Bears. Do you take a quarterback this year or do you take a defensive lineman knowing that if you're bad again, you can get Caleb or Drake May? And they are very sold on those guys being studs. And I would agree. I think those guys are top of the draft dudes. Michael Penix probably as well is going to be ahead of Jordan just because his throwing ability is better on draft boards right now. I don't think if you watch the two that they're actually all that close in terms of ability to throw the football. After that, though, I mean, I think you have some real interesting ones that Jordan could rise above, right? The top of the draft class next year at the quarterback position is probably better, but I'm not sure the depth is better, right? When you think about big time arms, McCarthy would have to take a good leap. Alar is not eligible at Penn State. Rattler will be a guy that I think will be ahead of Jordan on draft boards because of arm talent. People will want to take the chance, but Jordan could pass him up for sure.
I'd be surprised on that one. Just me personally.
I mean, I think the throws he makes, people are going to be very like. I think it's interesting. Now, here's the thing, though. I think you could see Jordan go high. Like if Jordan has a really good year, the argument for taking him in the first round, which I don't think he will go in the first round, but he could, is that the teams that win the Super Bowl for the majority of the time are teams that have a good player who is still on his rookie deal because they're able to sign really good players around him. This is the Jalen Hurts thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Jalen Hurts at $45 million is a terrible deal for the most part, unless you think he's going to continue to like to progress a ton and become Mahomes. Jalen Hurts at his rookie deal is a really good number. And if you take a kid in the first round, it's still cheap and you get the 5th-year option on the guy, which means you can extend that cheap range on him for 1 extra year, which they didn't do with Jalen. They actually took him in the 2nd round. So they don't get that 5th-year option for cheap. This is why, the Bengals window is 1 year longer with Burrow, although he's going to get that, new mega deal probably sooner just because of how damn good he is. Or you see teams win the Super Bowl if they have paid the insane money, the $45+ million, and the guy's actually like Hall of Fame talent.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
What you don't see is like Kirk Cousins or dudes like that who are making 40+ but aren't Hall of Fame good. Derek Carr, guys like that win.
Future Dak Prescott contract, what he gets. Yeah. Yeah.
And with Jordan, with the value of his legs, I could see a team, if he has an insane season, if he makes another big jump, man, I could see an NFL team thinking, shoot, back half of the first round, this guy is a dangerous weapon. Do we like him long term? I don't know. Do we like his ability to run around a lot? And maybe QB. Look, it's a stretch. I understand. He would need to improve as a passer a lot to go in the first round. But it's not entirely crazy given how the contracts work and how some teams use it. Like look what Philly did with Hurts.
Yeah. The teams are going to have concerns about his frame. I mean, Jordan walks up to you, very great guy, nice guy, does not look like somebody that you'd want a defensive end hitting, 12 times a game or whatever.
Jalen Hurts squats 600 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Hurts is a different, different animal. But if Jordan continues to improve in the passing game, continues to have some of the moments that he does, I personally think Jordan's draft stock is high point is maybe middle of the 2nd round. And I just don't know that a team would put a full first round on him, but you certainly bring up a great point as to that, if you're kind of there and on the fence, if you've gotten there, then maybe you say, maybe we take a last final 4 pick in the first round or something like that, just so that you get that 5th-year option if he does hit in the manner that we seem to think he might. So.
Teams tend to do that with quarterbacks now with the new CBA. I mean, I'm scrolling here. Shedeur Sanders, get out of here. Okay, I'm exiting off that draft site. This is a good reminder that like early mock drafts are hot garbage, dude.
Always.
So, all right, QB wise, it's on Draft Countdown. All right, well, they have Quinn Ewers over Drake May, so I feel like that's not a good representation. Jackson Dart, who Ole Miss feels so good about, they brought in 2 transfer quarterbacks to compete against him. Okay, that one's hot trash too. I'm not opening Walter Football because I know it's going to just like eat all my browser stuff. This one's from September. It's probably not great. I don't know. Are any of these 2024 mock drafts any good? Like these suck. I don't know. Okay, this one actually seems reasonably on point for the top 3. Williams, May, Penix. After this, it is a complete crapshoot. So, in order, Nix, Sanders, Jefferson from Arkansas absolutely will not go over Jordan Travis, I can guarantee you. Neither will Shedeur Sanders. Bo Nix, I could see going over Jordan. I mean, it just depends. Quinn Ewers certainly could. I mean, if he plays to his level, he's got freakish talent. His completion percentage this year was terrible. Cam Ward, Washington State, don't think so. Grayson McCall will not. Van Dyke at Miami, doubtful. He showed some real NFL throws as a sophomore, so I can't say 0 chance, but doubtful. Jordan is not even on this list, which makes me doubt. Okay, so that it started off good, and then not having Jordan on there is ridiculous. But the top three to me made some sense.
All right, y'all. That takes us to hour perfectly. Very much enjoyed it. We will be back within the next week or so to continue to bring you guys coverage. Bud, hope you have a great day, my man. Again,
you too, man.
We'll get one final pip of the website in battlesend.com. Again, all various levels of pricing and involvement available, but we do go live for the website today, and any support that you could give would be greatly appreciated.
Happy opening day, buddy.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon. Enjoyed it.
See you, man.